Hey guys, Cecil here once again. I wanted to do a video today and touch base on this whole EA controversy over the use of microtransactions and loot boxes in Star Wars Battlefront 2, as well as the whole kind of broader subject of microtransactions in $60 AAA games and the way the industry is moving towards that kind of model in their big releases. Now, just to kind of give people a quick synopsis for those who may not have been following things or aren't really sure what's going on, a few days ago, a user on Reddit uploaded a comment saying how he was not a big fan of having to spend $80 of real currency in order to unlock Darth Vader in the multiplayer in the game. And I think that kind of translates to about 40 hours of in-game grinding. And EA, in their infinite stupidity, sent one of their PR people to respond to his criticism of having to spend that $80, saying, well, you don't have to spend the money to do it. You know, spending so much time to unlock someone like Darth Vader in the game should be considered an honor when they finally unlock it. It should be considered a great accomplishment. Now, that's not verbatim by any means, but that was just the gist of the post that the EA employee made. And needless to say, a lot of people weren't a big fan of that really weak defense of the use of microtransactions in the game. And it subsequently became the most downvoted comment in Reddit history very quickly. I think as of the time of me recording this, it's already got over 600,000 downvotes. It reminded me actually quite a bit of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare's launch trailer back in spring of 2016, how that became the most downvoted YouTube video of all time. And it was quite amusing. But it's kind of stirred up the festering pot that has been this trend of microtransactions in big AAA games. Now, let me state for the record, I don't personally feel all microtransactions are bad when in the right, used in the right circumstances. And what do I mean by that? When it comes to certain free-to-play games like on PC, for example, League of Legends or RuneScape, or a lot of mobile games, you know, that have a very low upfront cost of, say, $500 or under, or, you know, they're downloaded for free. In those circumstances, I understand why microtransactions are needed, because if a company is going to give you a game for free, they got to make money somehow. And on mobile especially, the only real ways they can do that is they're either A, going to bombard you with in-game ads, or B, they are going to sell in-game currency or have some form of microtransaction. So in that circumstance, I understand why microtransactions need to happen. They need to exist. The problem is when you kind of cross that line of a $60 AAA game and where it kind of becomes a major issue. So on top of spending a lot of money up front, $60, $100, $110 in some games, if you factor in DLC and a season pass, that's already a lot of money up front to be able to play, a major game. And now on top of that, companies are starting to feel like they can nickel and dime people with microtransactions and try to monetize the entire experience of a game, especially on the multiplayer side. Grand Theft Auto Online, I think, is a big reason the industry has trended this way. Because on top of making, probably billions of dollars on just selling the game outright, they've made that much more, if not more so, in just selling in-game shark cash in that game. And I think all the other big, AAA publishers have seen dollar signs and seen the success EA has had with that, or excuse me, not EA, Take-Two Rockstar has had with Grand Theft Auto Online, and companies like EA want to get on that sweet microtransaction gravy train. Now, where I feel it's kind of becoming a problem and definitely a slippery slope is I'm going to address kind of two common arguments I hear where microtransactions, I wouldn't say they're defended, but why some people might just kind of write them off as not a big deal. And the first and most common one is, well, no one's forcing you to buy them. And that is definitely true. I won't deny that fact. No one is forcing someone to buy microtransactions. But to me, the problem is it waters down the experience for a lot of people. I guess to an extent that sense of accomplishment that the EA employee was trying to wrongly imply as a reason for spending so many hours on unlocking a game, it waters down the experience. And we'll use a hypothetical example here. Say you can unlock a character in a game, and to fully like level him up and unlock all his gear and weapons and armor, you can spend $100 to do it, or you can spend 100 hours of in-game grinding to do it. So, to be fair, a lot of people don't have time. I can kind of see the appeal, I guess, to an extent of having to spend real money to unlock him. But, for the people that, don't have that money, or for the people that spend time, leveling up, a character and getting him to a point, what real sense of accomplishment is there wasting all that time doing it when someone who's got an unlimited, backlog of funds, they can just spend money and unlock everything right away and they're good to go. They don't have to spend the 100 hours. It really kind of just, the sense of accomplishment goes away. There's no sense of satisfaction in wasting all that time to do it when, especially multiplayer games, when you have to spend 10 hours just to gain 10 levels, and someone can spend real money and be there in an instant, and plus the competitive disadvantage of that too, the whole pay to win thing. That's kind of the other half of the coin. It's seen as pay to win. So even though you're not forced to buy them, it's just seen as a pay to win scheme for a lot of people, and a lot of people do have unlimited funds where they can just spend money and they don't want to waste the time to do it. So like I said, it's a pay to win scenario. It waters down the experience, and to me that's where the whole you don't have to buy them argument kind of falls flat. And then the other half of this other side of the I guess the not so big deal argument is, as long as, pay to win kind of sucks, but if it's just on cosmetic DLC or, emotes and things like that, and it doesn't encourage pay to win, then it's not a big deal. And yes, to an extent that's true, but it also leaves the door open for that down the road. I like to use Plants vs. Zombies 2 as an example of this. When that game first launched, it didn't have anything. And I think anyone who reads reviews and understands how reviewers, and websites like Metacritic and game rankings work, the initial 95% of reviews are going to be released within the first couple of days of a game coming out. And they only can really judge the game as it is on release. And what happened with Plants vs. Zombies 2 is basically the game got a lot of, positive press and reviews, and then a few weeks later, and EA, kind of slipped it under the radar. They kind of they added microtransactions a few weeks after the fact, so that wouldn't be weighed against their overall review score of the game, on a website like Metacritic, for example. And that's kind of, to me, while it didn't get a lot of press, but to me that's kind of shady, because that's something that could have been, definitely, knock some points off the game for having that had it had right away. And it's kind of a bit of an underhanded thing to kind of put that in later after the fact. And same thing with games like two big games that have that whole kind of cosmetic DL thing are Destiny 2 and Overwatch. While it's, like I said, it's a level playing field, because as far as in Destiny 2 you buy silver to buy shaders and, emotes and things like that. You still have to, spend real time grinding and, leveling up your character and unlocking stuff and, things like that. There's no way to buy in-game weapons and stuff, but who's to say a year from now, when Destiny 2 has its first major year 2 expansion, they won't add that in down the road. And that's where it becomes a slippery slope in my mind, where, cosmetics isn't a big deal, but that leaves the door open for, pay to win down the road. So that's where I guess I have the biggest issue with microtransactions, and why, to me, it's becoming more and more of a problem. Now, I will say this, not all DLC, now I'm talking like expansions and season passes, to me, I've kind of come to learn to live with those, kind of going along the lines of added payments for things after a game releases. And the reason I say that is because AAA companies and Western developers in general have wanted to increase the price of games for years, because development costs are only rising. As far back as the first part of the 7th generation, they wanted to start charging $70, maybe $80 for games. And there was a lot of blowback, the $60 mental block of buying a game. And the way they've gotten around that is by adding DLC and cutting the game up and selling parts of the games later, or expansions to the game later down the road. It's also their way of beating back against the whole used game market. So even if they say a person buys a used game, they don't have to, the company doesn't get the upfront sale, but they, through DLC and expansions and that ilk, they can still make some money off the used game market. And I understand it. So as long as a game has worthwhile DLC, if I really like a game, to me, and everything is reasonably priced, I don't have a problem with DLC if it's done well and it's reasonably priced, because I understand companies need to be able to make money on spending millions of dollars on developing a big AAA game. So that's why I don't have necessarily a huge problem with DLC when it's done correct. But the problem is now we're kind of getting beyond that, and companies are looking for more and more ways to milk us, where microtransactions come in. And I kind of compare it to the cable industry beginning to add bandwidth caps to very profitable already cable purchasers from the home internet boom and things. How broadband has basically become the big it's the industry standard now is broadband, and they make tons of money selling, in-home internet to people, but now they want to make more money, even though it's very cheap to deliver that broadband service to you. And now they're going to start capping you and only claiming, oh, hey, it's only going to affect, the top 10% of bandwidth users. It's to make sure they're not, bogging down the network and things like that, even though that's proven to be a very flimsy and weak argument. To me, that's kind of along those same lines. So I guess at the end of the day, what can we do? If you're not a fan of microtransactions like me, what can we do? Well, there's two real things you can do, and that's one, obviously, vote with your wallet. Don't support a game. Don't buy it right away. Wait for a sale. Or at a minimum, if you gotta buy a game day one, don't buy any of the in-game microtransactions, because the only way you're gonna send the message home to these developers is to not support poor practices, either by renting a game, buy it used, wait for a sale, wait for a Game of the Year edition, that sort of thing. Don't buy it day one, because most companies make their most money on a game's initial release within the first handful of weeks of a game and its release. And the other half is, use platforms like YouTube and social media to tactfully, and I stress that, tactfully, vent your frustration to companies and let them know this kind of behavior isn't okay. And a lot of people think, well, gamers are a vocal minority. It's the casuals that are the broader market, and that is true. But what a lot of people don't think is the casuals who may not follow the industry, as heavily as, say, someone as you or I do, they're still asking their hardcore gaming friends about games and their opinions on stuff, or they're going to go, ask, online and maybe look stuff up. So we still have influence on the broader casual market. I think that's why EA was very quick to lower the price on unlocking, characters in game after all the negative blowback they got with the whole, how much it costs to unlock Darth Vader and that whole post on Reddit. So I definitely do think we have the ability. The thing is, though, you cannot, be, in a fit of rage, and people will say stupid things sometimes. You can't, go on EA's website and contact their PR department and threaten death threats against people in their company, or threaten bomb threats to their development offices and studios and things like that, because that just makes us look like a bunch of raging idiots, and makes them look like poor helpless victims. And that's where I kind of said tactfully, you got to use constructive criticism and let them know it's not okay. So I guess, guys, at the end of the day, that's my 2 cents on this whole thing. Let me know what you guys think of microtransactions. Do you think they're okay? They're not a big deal? Do you kind of agree more with me that it's becoming a slippery slope, and it's only going to continue to water things down as time goes on, as well as just being a a money grab from the industry. Let me know what you guys think of this down in the comments below. And as always, you guys take it easy, and I'll see you next time.